So last day we have discussed about the unconditional branching and the effect for that the control hazard that happens for unconditional branch, and also we have discussed that the effect we can nullify with respect to, nullify with the help of a special technique, what we call instruction queue and prefetching, which is connected in between the fetch and decode state. Somehow there will be a queue. That queue stores the prefetch instruction, more than one prefetch instruction at a time, so that if instruction, some unavailability of instruction happens, then the prefetch instruction can be used from the queue to decode and execute and complete the operation. And we have seen that the benefit that we get because of this instruction prefetch queue is called basically branch folding. But there is an interesting, a noticeable point is that the branch folding doesn't think about omitting the stalling or the bubble that we have in the pipeline. It doesn't guarantee. But branch folding techniques actually used mainly for keeping the overall execution time of all the instructions same as it is, without any hazard. Now this technique is not actually, the instruction prefetch queue that we have discussed is not a theoretical viewpoint only. We have a specific set of microprocessors or processors that have actually followed or used this technique for solving some problems. For example, if we compare between these two microprocessors, you see this 8085 microprocessor I have discussed at the very beginning of our class, right? And in the right side I have 8086 microprocessor. It is just both microprocessors are from Intel. 8086 is the next version of the microprocessor after 8085 evolved. In case of 8085, we have seen that we have this instruction register, decoder, timing and control unit, ALU, and many more. Some general purpose register, stack pointer, program counter, a lot of things are there. But you see, there is no such instruction prefetch queue you can visualize in this architecture of 8085. But if you look into 8086 architecture, you see that a lot of unknown things are present. I know that is ES, DS, SS. What is me? It has a different meaning. The meaning is that the difference in between 8085 and 8086 is that 8085 thinks that there is a memory. The memory that 8085 actually deal with, it consider as something like a whole memory at a time. It can point. But 8086 has divided the memory into some segments. For example, this part of segment up to this one is for storing your code. Say this part of segment for storing your, say for example, data, the data that is going to be used in the program. This part of segment may be used for the stack operation and all in this way. So depends on that, this ES, DS came. ES means extra segment, CS is port segment, then stack segment, and many more. So, but discussing 8086 architecture is not important. How 8086 works, that is not important also in this class. What is important is the existence of this part. You see, we have this is actually what is written instruction stream byte queue. This is actually what instruction prefetch queue that we have seen, we have discussed in the previous lecture. So basically what happens, the instruction fetched from the memory, this is the memory interface, from the memory instruction fetched and stored in this queue until it is used in the other part of the whole processing unit, and somehow it's decoded and executed and all. So I'm not going in detail of this, just I'm trying to show you that the instruction prefetch queue is not a theoretical viewpoint only. It has a practical perspective, it has a practical implementation with respect to modern processors starting from 8086. So basically we have discussed about the idea of unconditional hazard and the effect for that. Now the topic for today is what we call conditional hazard. I'm sorry, not conditional hazard. I must say that's a control hazard, and the reason for the control hazard is conditional branching. So my question is that what is conditional branching? You see, we have already idea about the branching or the branch instruction or the branch target address and all. We have already discussed in the previous class. And the conditional means what? Means depends on the some condition, you may have the branch from one instruction to another instruction. For example, if I take a very simple program, for example, I'm writing just a simple code. For example, say I equal to 1 while I less than equal to 10, maybe printf hello, then I equal to I plus 1, and that's all. And maybe here printf okay. Right. The code can be look something like this one also, that the same code I can write in a different way, that I will write do, then print hello, and I equal to I plus 1, and while I maybe greater than, I'm sorry, not greater than, I is less than equal to 10, and maybe some code is written after this. So you see, in both of this program, if I say that this is an instruction, I equal to 1 is an instruction, then printf hello is another instruction, each and every line, if I consider as an instruction, even considering the checking part also, then you see after checking the content of I with 10, whether printf will be executed or this one, it depends upon what is the condition of this, right? So you can say that this is the branch instruction, right? And here we have a branch from here to here. If the condition is true, then it will come here. But if condition is false, I will come here. So here the branch instruction, reason is false. False condition. Now if you think over here, you see after checking whether I is less than or equal to 10, if this is true, then what will happen? I may go in this printing the hello again, or I will come out from the loop. So basically here this is also branch instruction. And you are jumping from this location to this location. But the reason is that true condition. If the condition is true, then you will jump from this one to this one. Remember, if the instructions that are being fetched one by one are in consecutive memory address, then that is not what we call jumping. Jumping means skipping subset of instruction and going back to either previous instruction, or jumping to some instruction by skipping some other instructions. Something like this here. I have some instruction in this case in this place, but if the condition is false, then I will skip this instruction and jump here. That is jumping. And in this case also, if the condition is true, I'm not going forward, I'm going backward, and I will print this hello again. So this is another jump. So these are the two situations where we can see it's jumping. Now, in both cases, actually, we will see if you draw the timing diagram for each and every instructions one by one, you will see that because of this branch instruction, there will be a possibility of stalling, and for some time the pipeline will has to be flushed and proper instruction has to enter in the pipeline. The reason is that when this branch condition is executed, for example, in this case, in the first case, where while I less than or equal to 10, think about the last condition. When this condition is going to be false, at that time, after checking this one, I should jump to this printf OK instruction. But if I assume that these are in a pipeline, that means when the conditions checking is going on, it's maybe in execution stage, this printf hello has already started fetching. And after executing this I less than or equal to 10 and calculating the branch target address, then the processor has to flush the prefetch instruction for this printing hello from the pipelining and fetch this instruction for printf OK in the pipelining so that this can be executed. Now this flushing is required because of this unwanted instruction entered in the pipeline. And this is what actually just like we have discussed about branch penalty. In this case, in other way we can express this, and that is what we call branch delay slot. So what is branch delay slot? We can say the number of unwanted instruction actually uh, following the branch instruction sorry, H will not be here, is called branch delay slot. So, for example, in this case, if I assume that when this I less than or equal to 10 is being calculated and branch target address will be calculated, at that time if I see that this printf hello and I equal to I plus 1, both these instructions somehow has entered in the pipeline and partially has been executed, then these two are unwanted instruction at that moment, and here the branch delay slot will be equal to 2. Okay. So basically, if you compare with this previous case, that is branch penalty equal to penalty and branch delay slot, you will see that in this case, in this particular timing diagram, this I2 was the branch instruction and branch target address was IK, and we have seen that if there was a really way to realize that after I2 IK should occur, we should execute, then naturally after fetching of I2 fetching of IK should occur, and fetching of I2 happened in second clock cycle, whereas fetching of IK started on fourth clock cycle, right? But if I assume there was no I3 and I4 instruction at that in a situation, then after I2 IK should come, that means IK should start fetching on third clock cycle. Instead of that, IK started on fourth clock cycle. So the difference is basically 1, and that is why we have said that the branch penalty is equal to 1 in this case. Now if you think about the branch delay slot, there you see that the number of unwanted instruction that is following this branch instruction that has to flush out from the pipelining because of this, branching, that is are I3 and I4 both, right? So that means the number of unwanted instruction is equal to 2, that is following the branch instruction. So here the branch delay slot will be 2. That means the branch penalty and branch delay slot are totally different concept. You cannot mix up in between among these two. You cannot even say that if the branch penalty equal to n, then there will be branch delay slot is also n. It can be different, it can be same also. It doesn't matter. There is no, you cannot make any relation between the branch penalty and branch delay slot. Now you see, as a computer engineer, as an architect, what will be our goal? Our goal will be to minimize the number of bubbles present in the pipelining or the unwanted flashing that is required because of this branch instruction. And how we can do this? One idea that we have in this case is what we call delayed branch. Okay, the solution for this conditional hazard one solution actually. You can say delayed branch. Delayed branching actually. Now what does it mean? So the idea is basically, I mean, the objective of this one, let's write it. The objective is to place some useful instruction in the branch delay slot so that unwanted pipeline flushing is not required. And unwanted pipeline flushing means if you have to do some pipeline flushing, naturally you have to stop stop some working some stages, right, which will create bubble to the previous stages. So if you are able to do this, naturally bubble will be vanished. Now how we can do this? Let's take an example. I hope there you will remember, you will understand. So if we take say if we write a program, for example, suppose let's take a very simple program. Let's write a program in C language first, then I will convert the program into a probable machine level language, not machine level, some intermediate level language, that is what we call I can't remember the name right now. Anyway, let's see. Let's write it first. So suppose I have a variable j. Okay, j equal to, I have written equal to n, and then I have started with do while. Suppose I have a shift of I by a left shift by 1. And then I'm writing j equal to j minus 1, and this will continue until j equal to 0. Sorry, j will be not equal to 0, right? And after this, when the loop will complete, say I will just put an add statement. I've kept this statement just to show you an instruction immediately after the branch instruction, because this is the branch instruction, right? And you see, so if we just write the instruction name one by one, it can be something like this is I1, then I2 is this, I3 is this, then I4 is the branch instruction, and I5 is some array instruction. Okay, so if we convert this high level language to some middle level language, for example, assembly level language, I'm not writing exactly assembly level code of some processor. I'm just writing a pseudo code that may be in assembly level language. I can say that this one, this j equal to n, is something like move. Obviously, these variables that I have used over here is somehow related with some memory location or register in the processor. So let's take some registers. So this J2 variable that I have used is somehow say related with the associated with some register R2 of the processor. So move R2 comma n means this n will be moved to this R2. That's all. Okay. And then this do and bracket, it doesn't have any significance in machine high in the assembly level language. Okay. So after this instruction directly I will write this I2, and that is a shift. So you can say that left shift some another register name I, that is say R1. Okay, and after doing this j is decremented by 1, so you can say another instruction decrement what R2, because R2 j is actually means R2 with the architecture, and after decrementing I have to decide whether I will branch or not. So here the branch instruction will be there if the result is not equal to 0. So branch if not equal to 0. And it is the nature of any microprocessor that when the branch instruction occur, it basically check the result of the previous instruction, that is result of R2. So that means branch not equal to 0 means the processor will check whether R2 is not equal to 0, because R2 was updated last before this branch instruction. And if this is true, then I should go back to the left shift R1 again, because this one only these two instructions are in the loop, so only these two instructions. Anyway, so how I will note that I will tell you later. I'm showing you very soon. But after this, let's write this last instruction I5, that is say add instruction, some add, right? Say add. Suppose I have one register K, that is say R1 with R4. That's all. Okay, R1 with R4, and we can express the part of that is present in the loop is in this way. Like if the branch is equal to 0, I will write this as loop. That means it will go, and this loop is actually marked for this statement. That means it will jump from here to here, as simple as that. Now, naturally, this is my I1, this is my I2, this is I3, this is I4, and this is I5, right? Now you see, if I just consider that I have a two-stage pipelining and try to execute this code within the pipelining, let's see what problem we will face. So we have considered that we have a two-stage pipelining, fetch followed by execute stage. That's all. I can design it with a 4-stage pipelining also, but what will happen, the complexity of the whole design, whole diagram, or the diagram will increase basically. So we can simply explain it by same thing by the 2-stage also. So if I just write the instructions, okay, let's write the time clock cycles first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That's all. Fine. And so this is the clock cycle. And in the here we will write the instructions. So I1. You see, if you think about executing this set of instructions, I1, then I2, then I3, then I4, something will come. So let's write I1, I2, I3, I4 first. I2, I3, then I4. Okay. Let's just write the status of the pipelining, how it will continue. Then I will proceed for after what will happen after I4. So you see that I1 is a normal instructions. There is not related with any loop. So I1 will execute and assume that the loop will run 2 times and third time I will get the false. Okay. So in this situation, if I say that I1, then I2, then I3 will get execute, then I4 also will get execute. So fetch, then execute. When it started executing, fetching of instruction 2 starts, then execution of 2 starts. When execution started, fetching of instruction 3 started, then execution of 3 will get started. When execution started, fetching of instruction 4 started. And you see, this 4th instruction is the branch instruction. So after fetching it, understood it is a branch instruction. So now it has to execute. What is the result and calculate the branch target address. But interestingly, when branch target address is calculated, I5 has entered in the pipeline. That's for sure. So what will happen? I5 has entered in the pipelining, and after 5th clock cycle, the processor realized that I have to jump to I2 again. So the 6 threads that we have, this part will not work. The execution of this I5 will not work. Instead of that, from the memory, this I2 will be loaded, right? I2 will be loaded, right? I2 is the branch target. So this is basically what you can say branch target. So what will happen if I2 loaded? Naturally, after I2, I3 will come. After I3, I4 will come, and as it is, you can see obviously I5 will come wrongly, and then again I2 will come, then again I3 will come, then again I4 will come, and then again I5 will enter. And if I assume in this case, when this I4 is executed, that is 3rd time, that branch is false, then obviously I5 will be the correct one. So let's see what will happen in that case. We will realize it with this timing diagram. That is, this part will be stopped, and what will happen? The fetching of I2 will start, right? And fetching of I2 will be followed by execution of I2, that is for sure. At that time, fetching of I3 will start, which is followed by again execution of I3. Similarly, fetching of I4 will start, and then again it will realize that this is the branch instruction. So this is the branch instruction, right? So what will happen? It will execute the branch target address. At the same time, I5 has entered in the pipeline, and after calculating the branch target address on 9th clock cycle, it will realize that I should not continue executing I5, rather I should fetch I2, because that is the branch target address, right? So I2 will be fetched. and similarly after this it will be executed. Similarly, when it is executed, as already we have seen, it will start fetching and executing. When it is executed, I5 has started fetching and execute for the branch target address again. But problem is that in this case now the processor will see that this is not going to branch. So basically it will discard the branching, and when this is going on, naturally I5 has again entered in the pipelining, but since here no branch is occurring, that's why I5 will not be flushed from the pipelining. As we have seen it done 2 times over here. It will continue with executing. So this I5 is actually the add instruction that we know that after completion of this loop this should occur, and this is what's happening over here. This add is not being executed 2 times because loop was running, and when the loop has stopped, then only this add instruction executed, right? So this is the branch instruction, and this was the branch target basically, right? Third time branch target has not been loaded because branching is not occurred. So this is a scenario we can face with a normal process, and we can see there is a need of flushing out this I5 from the pipelining 2 times, and flushing out means definitely it will get stalled. And if the number of stages increases, I mean if you consider that you have 4-stage pipelining, fetch, decode, execute and write back, then naturally the complexity of the instruction execution as well as the number of stalling will get increased. Not only that, maybe the branch delay slot will also increase, because here this is what we can say that branch delay slot. Right? Similarly, this is also a branch, again another branch delay slot. That is the unwanted instruction entered in the pipeline which required to flush out. Now, what is our goal in case of delayed branching is that I will put some useful instruction within this branch delay slot so that the flushing will not get required. So how we can do this? That is the question. So let's proceed. So basically, let's write the code again. I mean the code in the assembly level language that I have written over here. That is move R2 to N. Then what we had? Left shift, decrement, branch, add. Okay, so left shift R1, decrement R2, then branch, if not equal to 0, and then the add instruction. Add R1 with R4, right? And this is the loop. So from here we will jump, and where we will jump? We will jump from to here. And we have seen that this is the instruction I1, I2, I3, I4, I5. So what we have seen, this I5, this add instruction has entered in the pipeline wrongly, and that is why the flushing is required. And this is the branch delay slot. So what we can do to put some useful instruction within the branch delay slot, what actually we have to do what we call instruction reordering. Instruction reordering means I will keep this instruction as it is, but I will change the order of this instruction in such a way that it will solve the problem of the branch delay slot. And how we can do this, let's see. So let's take a different color to understand. So what I will write, obviously this move R2 comma N is not part of the branch instruction and all, so I will keep this instruction as it is. Move R2 comma N. Then what I will do, instead of writing left shift, I will write decrement. Decrement R2 first, and then I will write branch. Not equal to 0, and after that I will write left shift R1, and then we can write add R1 comma R4. Here you see that the branch target address, that is loop, will be this one. That means it will jump from this one to previous address. Now, just to compare what the new situation will be, I am not changing the instruction numbers to realize the reordered instruction. So I will keep the instruction number as it is, corresponding to each and every instruction. Move was I1, left shift, decrement R2 was I3, so after I1 I will put I3, then I will put I4, and then this will be I2, and then I5. Now you see, apparently from this conversion you can say that it may change the total result of the program, because ultimately left shift and decrement both should be within the loop, but apparently you can see that the left shift is not present in the loop, because branch if not equal to 0, then it will come out and decrement R2. Only decrementing R2 will occur. Left shift of R1 will not occur in the loop. But if you think from a pipeline point of view, you just realize it one thing, that when this branch target address is calculated, at that time left shift operation is being fetched. Now with respect to the original instruction, I know that left shift is the instruction that has to be executed in each and every loop. So that means when branch target is calculated, that means I4 is basically executed. At that time I2 has entered in the pipelining, and since this I2 is a instruction that has to be executed, that means I will not flush out I2 from the pipelining. I will keep it as executed. So stalling will never occur. Let's see what will happen now in this modified situation. If I draw the timing diagram again, just writing the clock cycles first, as we have done in the previous diagram. Maybe this is sufficient. Let's see. So here what we will do, we will execute the pipeline in this order, right? Execute the instructions in this order in the pipeline. So I1, then I3, then I4, then I2. So I1, then I3, then I4, then I2, right? And let's see after I2 what I have to write, then we will realize it very soon. So let's complete this part up to, at least. So I1 means fetch 1 and then execute. You see, I'm also considering, I'm just to, you know, taking the same situation of the pipelining so that we can compare the modified result that we have got. Not modified result, the benefit that we will get. So when execution is going on, naturally I3 will start fetching, and it will follow executing. This I3 is the decrement operation, right? Okay. Then I4 will start fetching, and it will realize that this is the branch instruction, and it will start getting the execution, calculating the branch target address, and at that time this I2 has entered in the pipeline for fetching, right? Now you see, we know that this I2 is an instruction that has to be executed in each and every loop. That means what pipeline will do, what the processor will do, processor will not flush this I2 from the pipelining, rather it will let on execute. And when it is being executed, at that time, the branch target of this I4 currently that we have, that is I3, we can be easily loaded in the memory, in the pipelining. Can be easily loaded in the pipelining. I'm sorry. So I3 can be loaded, and naturally after I3 then again I4 will come. After I4, similarly what we have, I2 will execute. When I2 will execute, after I2 definitely I3 will be, at that time I3 will be loaded, and then again I4 will be executed, and maybe this time it will be false. So let's see what will happen. I'm sorry. Okay. So you see, so at that time my fetch 3 will start, right? Because when the instruction of instruction 2 is executed, at that time the branch target, that is I3, in this modified program can be easily loaded in the pipelining and started fetching. I'm sorry, the letter is not clear. So it can start fetching, and obviously it will follow the execution part. Then again fetching of 4 start, and this is the branch instruction, and it will calculate the branch target address. At that same time I2 will enter in the pipelining, and again the processor know that this instruction I2 is a instruction has to be executed, so it will keep on executing this I2 again. And at that time when I2 is being executed, at that time the processor can easily load I3 on the in the input of the pipelining, right? So I3 now can start fetching at that moment, right? And then it can execute, right? And then here I4 will come, and you see, we all know that with respect to previous condition, that as many times decrement R2 will occur, left shift R1 will also occur. So because they both are in the loop, so you see, when this instruction I3, let's see, I3 has been executed once, actually once, twice and thrice. 3 times. That means I2 should execute 3 times also. Like I2 has been executed once, twice, and 3 times is left, right? So that means when I4 will start executing, at that time I2 will enter in the pipeline again, right? But as I told you that we have considered the loop will run 2 times. That means this is the third time when condition is executed, right? I4 has executed this first time, second time. In the third time it will be false. So in the execution stage, it will find, basically in this execution stage, it will find the I should not branch. The processor will find that I should not branch to the branch target address. Then what will happen? After I4, if you see I should not branch to the branch target address, definitely this I2 should be loaded, should be executed, right? Because I2 is the next instruction after branching with respect to the original code, with the modified code, and after I2, I5 will execute. So that's why naturally I2, I mean, we can see in this diagram also that I2 has started fetching. So there is nothing wrong. Obviously fetching of I2 is required, and it should be followed by execution. But since I4 is not branching to the branch target, that is why in this situation, in this case, after I2, I3 will not be the input of the pipelining, rather I5 will come in the input. And it will basically, fetched at the time when I2 is being executed, and obviously I5 will be executed, and the result I will get. So you see, in this case, this is what the branch instruction, right? This is the branch instruction, I4 I think, right? Yes, this is the branch instruction. But what we have over here, this is, although this is, I can say specifically that although I2 is next to branch instruction, it is not an unwanted instruction with respect to the original program. That means I2 is not a branch delay slot. The thing that we are discussing, that putting some useful instruction in the branch delay slots, we found that this I2 can be an useful instruction that I can put in the branch delay slot, so that I will get the same result. But if you compare this diagram with the previous diagram, what benefit we have seen? we have seen that there is no stalling present in the pipelining. So the benefit that we have got is that there is no bubble present in the pipelining. So using the branch delay slot, using the delayed branching, this is a way by which actually we can remove the bubble present in a bubble that is, the possibility of creating a bubble for this conditional branching. Now naturally question comes that who has done this? This conversion from this program to this program, who has done this? The programmer has not done. When the programmer written a program, programmer wrote a program something like this. This is written by a programmer. Who has converted this one? Compiler has converted this, right? From your high level language to some intermediate level language, the assembly level language. And in this case also, compiler is the only responsible for doing this. So designing a compiler is not going to be very easy. That's why compiler has a lot of responsibility. Not only, generally we know that only from high level language to some low level language, but that is not true. There are many other many other responsibility there present for a compiler, and one of them very crucial responsibility is this one, that is instruction reordering, based on understanding whether there is a conditional branch, what type of branching. If there is a conditional branch, then what type of conditional branch, it's going to some previous address. It's here, we are going to here in this way, right? Previous address. But there is a situation, we can go to the next address also, like this. You see this one. In this, instead of do while, if I use while loop, you see, its branching means actually skipping some set of instructions and going forward direction. But in case of do while loop, it is going backward instruction. So if I consider for forward instruction, definitely the logic will not change, but the tactics of finding the useful instruction and place that in a program will be different, maybe. So in the next class we will see some more complex situation that can arise because of this conditional branch. So maybe we have to predict somehow that whether branch will occur or not, and how we can predict. We will discuss about all these things. So till now, what we can say that what we have we have understood is that the delayed branching is a very useful technique for solving or eliminating the bubble because of conditional branching in case of control hazard, right? By the way, you see here we have seen that there is a useful instruction present in this program, that is left shift R1, which can be used in the branch delay slot so that I can remove the pipeline bubble from the normal execution. But it does not mean that in every program there will be some useful instruction that you can insert in the branch delay slot. Okay. So if there is no instruction in the branch delay slot, let's write it. If there is no instruction in the branch, if no instruction, that can be inserted in the branch delay slot, it should be there is no useful instruction. Okay, then branch delay slot is filled up with NOP instruction. Sorry. Now, what is NOP instruction? That I have already discussed in my previous class. There is no operation, right? So no operation means it will not operate anything, but your no stalling will occur. Anyway, so if you still cannot remember the NOP, the idea about the NOP instruction, you can go to my previous video and check it from the YouTube. So anyway, we can stop our class over here. In the next class, we will see some more intelligent technique where we can easily predict whether branch will occur or not, and depends on that we can take decision to minimize the branch penalty in a pipeline hazard. Thank you.